Okay. Good evening, everyone. I see a few folks, but I guess we're going to have a few folks that are going to stay on video. So I think I'll get started. Good evening. Thank you all for joining me this evening. As you know, the Board of Education has approved a reopening phase-in plan to bring our students back to school for in-person learning. The phase-in plan also maintains the remote learning option for families who choose to keep their children at home for remote learning. Phase 4 of the plan begins with our pre-K, where we will be welcoming them back for 5 days of in-person instruction per week. That 5 days, like I said, will begin on Monday, November 23rd. And all those youngsters will be inside the 6 feet social distancing mark using desk barriers, shields at their desks and workstations. We're also going to be welcoming back students in grades K, 1, and 4. They will be coming back for 4 days of in-person instruction per week. And that will be on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. Wednesday will remain a remote learning day. And again, these students will be inside the 6 feet mark and using desk barriers and shields in place on all desks. Also on phase 4, which is again November 23rd, we will be welcoming back in grades 6 through 12 all students who receive special education services, E&L services, and students in our intensive academic programs at the high school and the middle school, also for 4 days of instructions per week. We will be able to maintain the 6 foot socially distant mark at that time for these students. Something that's new that was approved last night at the Board of Education meeting. On Monday, November 30th, all students in grades pre-K through 12 who attend South Country schools will shift to all remote learning. And that will be for the week of November 30th through December 4th. This shift is simply a precautionary measure to avoid any possible uptick in infection rates following the Thanksgiving holiday. So we're trying to be proactive with regard to that. South Country students who also attend BOCES programs will also switch to all remote learning during this week. And these programs include the Career Tech and Special Career Ed programs at the Bixborn Technical Center, Islip Career Center, Milliken Technical Center, and also our Eastern Suffolk BOCES alternate high school at the Belport Academic Center. South Country students who are placed by the Committee for Special Education in an out-of-district placement will continue to follow that schedule unless notified by that program provider and they choose to go remote. Our phase-in plan moves to phase 5, which now has shifted a week from my initial letter, but you should have all received a letter, I think this afternoon or maybe a short time ago, regarding these updates that we are talking about. In phase 5, we'll be welcoming back grades 2, 3, 5, 6, and 12 for 4 days of instruction, in-person instruction per week. And that will also take place on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, with Wednesday remaining as a remote learning day. We then move to phase 6. Again, phase 6 now will begin on January 4th, 1 week later than originally planned. In phase 6, we will be welcoming back students in grades 7 and 11 for 4 days of in-person learning per week. And again, that learning will take place on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, with Wednesday remaining a remote learning day. And then we will move to our final phase, phase 7, which will now begin on January 19th. 1 week later than originally planned. And in this phase, we will be welcoming back the remaining students, and that's in grades 8, 9, and 10. also for 4 days of in-person learning per week. And again, the learning will be on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and Wednesday will remain as a remote learning day. That's basically the phase-in plan that has been approved by the board. I'm going to try and address some questions that we've often heard and some that were sent in, and I may have combined them into one topic. So because some items were asked in multiple ways, but are really the same answer. So we've been hearing questions with regard to the metric to close, okay? The metric we've been using, or at least been going by, is that of the states, which appears it may have changed. Back in August, you may remember the governor indicated schools would close when regions reached a 5% positive rate over a 7-day average. That's the metric we have been following and expecting an executive order in the event we reach that metric. We have not reached that metric. In fact, if you go to the state's website, you can easily find where we are. I think last I saw, Suffolk County was 3.8%. However, it appears that metric may have changed because just this October, the new micro-cluster strategy was introduced. And this micro-cluster strategy has several metrics used that places regions in one of 3 zones. In 2 of the zones, schools would be closed. And in one of the zones, schools could remain open if mandatory testing takes place for 20% of students and staff. We are awaiting further guidance on what and how that might look from the county, because schools cannot do testing. Schools need to partner with health organizations to be able to do that, and we are expecting further guidance with that. Earlier today, I just received an email from the governor's office, and I am going to be on a call with the governor's office along with other superintendents, and I expect to get further guidance on the micro-cluster strategy. So unfortunately, at this time, there is no clear picture. We don't have a metric where we automatically close. This is obviously a fluid situation, just as fluid as we decided just recently to go all remote after the Thanksgiving break, because we do see COVID numbers are going up. We do have concerns with gatherings that will happen during the Thanksgiving break, and are concerned that there may be an uptick during that week. So that is why we are going to be on remote learning that week. So how and why does the DOH determine quarantine situations? So the DOH determines who to quarantine based on close contact. When we learn, and that's the school, learn of a positive case, we determine who has been in close contact with the individual during the infectious period, and then submit that list to the Department of Health. The Department of Health would then conduct contact tracing by interviewing these close contacts. The Department of Health has recently advised us that all close contacts will be quarantined. So in effect, when we determine in our schools that a positive case was in close contact with another student or another adult, we send those folks home and tell them they will hear from the DOH, and they're to stay home for 2 weeks. We're not the ones doing the quarantining. We're the ones that identifying the close contact, which in effect, DOH will quarantine those individuals. We may take it upon ourselves to make sure we share that information directly with the individuals, because we have learned that at times the DOH may be backed up a day or 2 or even longer, as so I've heard. Our experience with the DOH is they have been getting back to us in 24 hours. But in any event, we will determine who is a close contact, report that to the DOH, and those individuals will be quarantined. For your information, the definition for close contact, the DOH defines a close contact as someone within 6 feet of a positive case for 10 minutes or more over a 24-hour period during the infectious period. 48 hours prior to symptom onset or 48 hours prior to the test date, if asymptomatic, is what they consider the infectious period. And in addition, it is still considered a close contact if masks are worn and barriers are in place. All remote teachers in grades K-5. So I'm sure you know that we have assigned remote teachers in grades K-5. We have 2 sections of remote learners per grade level in grades K-5. We do have youngsters from both special education. I'm just voting everyone. We do have youngsters that get special education and E&L services that are in those sections, and they have been placed so we can provide additional supports by certified teachers for those youngsters. In addition, we have some dual language classes that are also working remotely. The district's working right now on recruiting a bilingual educator for our remote learners in the dual language program. We do have some people that we may be able to assign within, but I know that we are doing some interviewing and expect to have someone in place shortly with regard to that. But the plan is to put a bilingual educator in that program so students can learn in both languages. Student absences. Questions have come with regard to students' absences. So if your child or your children are sick, obviously they should stay home. Intermittent absences due to illness or even parent choice, students will be able to access work in Google Classroom. If a child is home due to quarantine for any length of time, student work will also be in the classroom and the classroom teacher will live stream, okay? So we're not going to have students just look for work if they are affected by COVID-19 due to illness or quarantine. Switching back to remote and back to hybrid. So if you wish to move your children from our in-person hybrid model to remote, you can do that at any time. You can simply just contact your child's principal. It may not be immediate, but it will be rather quickly to be able to do that. However, if you would like to move your child from remote learning to hybrid, you will need to wait till the end of the semester. As we move students in for in-person instruction, obviously classrooms are getting tighter with regard to being able to provide that 6-foot barrier, and we're going to go inside that 6 foot. So every child will matter, and new locations may need to be found. So that's why we ask that you make those decisions and then stick with that decision till the end of the semester. Obviously, we recognize there are extenuating circumstances, and if you do have an extenuating circumstance, please share that with the principal. And my understanding is we have been making accommodations wherever possible up until now anyway. And I think I covered most of the questions. At this point, I think I'd like to open it up for questions from you all and try to answer them the best I can. I know I've asked in a recent letter for folks to send in questions. I've tried to compile them. And what I'm planning to do is do a Facebook Live event where I can address each of those questions and then record and post it so everyone has the same material. But if we can, we could start. You could just start talking and hopefully try not to step on each other. If someone starts, just hold off on the next one and I'll try to address your questions. Anyone? I see Ms. Cologne. I know she's got a lot of questions, so.
Okay,
I'll hold off for now. I want to see if anybody else has anything to say.
Okay.
got kicked off.
Yes, hi. I just had some questions about exactly, because, for example, my daughter has been fully remote up to now, and we're going to keep her that way. And I understand, this week, my daughter was introduced to, I guess, the 2 teachers that she's going to have.
Mhm.
I'm just a little unclear as to when exactly she's going to be fully switching to those teachers. And she was added to their Google Classroom, and there's all these assignments that are several days old, but all week my daughter's been working with her regular, the first grade teacher she's had. So I'm just a little confused about how the transition works and what class she's supposed to be in.
Yeah, so this week was to be the transition week where teachers were introduced to their new students, and then they were to be transitioning next week. If that's not in place, you would continue to connect with your roster teacher. We're trying to keep that connection somewhat because we recognize parents and kids don't like to switch teachers. But we're also trying to address the concern and issue with teachers trying to manage both the remote world and the in-person world at the same time. So this week was supposed to be a transition week. If more time is needed, you would need to still connect with your classroom teacher. Can you tell me what building you were at? You don't need to tell me who the teachers are.
Vern Kritz.
Kritz, okay. Vern W. Kritz.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think there's a lot of confusion with that in other schools too. We're in Brookhaven Elementary, and there's no, we're not getting communication from anybody to really know that that's what's happening.
Yeah, well, I learned just this afternoon that there were some issues with regard to the remote learning and the plan, which I plan to address tomorrow. But the plan was transition this week and begin next week. And if we're not going to be up to speed with that, as I mentioned, you can continue to log into your regular Roxa teacher, where I think you find right now teachers are streaming. Okay. Another question?
Yes, hi, Dr. Gianni.
Yeah.
I have a question regarding the physical distance at Frank P. Long. I'm the parent of a 4th grader, and I'm very excited for him to go back to the 4-day. He's currently a hybrid student. I'm very concerned. The letter does say that students will be distanced less than 6 feet apart. So will that vary according to building and room? I know some classrooms are smaller than others.
Yes, it does. And the closest, Frank P. Long is actually one of the buildings with the largest distance. I plan on posting the averages on the website. I can tell you the tightest place is, I believe, 3 feet, maybe 2.5 feet, and it's at Kramer. I think we all know Kramer is probably one of our smaller buildings, and believe it or not, we have a very large enrollment in that building. I don't have the ranges in front of me, but they would range anywhere from 2.5 feet, and I think there's one classroom in the district that would be at 2.5 feet. But for the most part, it's 3 to 6 feet that the classes will be. Frank P's got a little bit more room. Kritz has got a little bit more room. I think those are the 2 buildings that you'll see more space. But I will post that. I've been asked to do that anyway.
Okay, I do appreciate that. And yeah, I don't need an exact distance. I just wanted a general idea. And having said that, the number, how will we know how to make that decision, whether or not to go remote or send our children 4 days? I guess we need to know the distance and we need to know the number of kids in the class. Will we be getting that information before we make our decision? Because I feel very, short on time. I want to be able to send him 4 days, but if I feel that it's not safe after I get that information, I may change my mind.
Well, the good news is if you do change your NIME, it's an easy switch out of remote. Those numbers are available from your principal. So
Okay.
I would suggest you call your principal. They prepared each classroom and distances for me, which I had shared with the board. And I can certainly post those averages online, but your principal has that information. So if you need that to make your decision, I would suggest you contact the principal. They would know exactly which room it is and what the average distance would be.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Dr. Johnny, I have a question. I don't know if you can hear me. I have a senior and a junior that are remote learning, and I joined the meeting late, so I apologize if it was already announced to everybody. Are they still able to continue to learn remotely as they are currently remotely learning now?
Yes, yes.
Thank you.
Remote learning in the secondary is really not changing. The teachers are streaming. They're quite successful with it, and we're planning to just continue right along with it.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Stay safe. Thank you.
Thank you.
Excuse me, Dr. Gianni.
Okay, Ms. Colon, how are
All
you?
right. So no, I want to thank you for doing the Zoom meeting. I think it's good for the parents, and I do want to say that the teachers across all levels, I believe, are doing a phenomenal job, and they should be applauded and commended for what they're doing in this unprecedented situation. With that said, on the K-5 level, you know how I feel. I've made it very vocal. The K-5 only remote kids are being disproportionately affected. And I understand that it's very hard for the teachers, but you just said a little while ago that the roster teachers are still going to have to teach remotely for their in-person students. So I don't understand why we can't just stick with like a plan that, you know, the remote kids can stick with what they've been doing for 3 months. If the roster teachers still unfortunately they're not really getting a break, they still have to remote teach to their in-person kids should they be out for any reason. So that's really where I'm coming from. And I think that schedule changes for the little ones is very, very, very hard. And teacher changes are very, very hard. And I think for the ones that are at home and remote or have been remote this whole time, they have a plan in place. They've already been doing it for 3 months. And now to switch to new teachers, all new schedules, all new assignments, et cetera, is a lot. I just ask that there's some type of consideration to keep it, maybe go back to the September plan, the initial remote learning plan, and keep it like that.
Yeah, well,
So
the initial plan wouldn't work because we weren't streaming, Ms. Colon. So the current streaming plan really could work. But it's a real challenge for our teachers to manage the kids remotely and in person. And that's the piece we were trying to address. We were also trying to address by keeping that connection with the class by allowing them to stay connected on those Wednesdays. And you brought up a very good point in your email to me, and I think it was also to the board, with regard to the Google connections in the morning and the afternoon. If we were able to continue that, at least they could be part of the class. And that's something that we do need to look at. I don't want to say that we have. Quite honestly, I haven't had an opportunity to meet with the principals since earlier this week. But we are going to look at that, and we're going to really look at all of it. I think Miss Simmons in the very beginning said that there were some challenges happening with remote learning, and we're going to have to look at the whole thing. Because it was my expectation that things would have been cleared up by now and ready to go by next week.
Right.
So we'll have to take a look at it, but I do recognize the transition challenge. I do, and when we make decisions, we try to balance everything out, right, and try to make it right all with the kids in mind. And we thought that the plan was the best plan in place.
Right. I just, like I said, I just think that because the roster teachers still will have to remote teach for the ones the 4-day in-person kids, it almost doesn't make sense.
Yeah, well, so the roster teachers will teach streaming when kids are quarantined, right? So kids out for a day the plan is not for them to stream, because they would be streaming every single day. But when a kid is out due to COVID or needing to quarantine, whether a family member or themselves, we're not going to deny education to that child, and that teacher is going to stream at that time. And quite honestly, that may happen more often than we think now that we move inside the 6 feet. I mean, I think I made it very clear to the board when we talked about this to go into this. There's no doubt in my mind that once we get inside the 6 feet, we will be quarantining more, because right now we have the benefit of that 6 foot buffer. And as I mentioned earlier, the Department of Health says, I'm not even looking at you if you're outside that 6 foot mark. You know, so there's no doubt we will be doing some more quarantining as a result of this, if infections rise.
Okay.
So,
Yeah,
and listen, I think the change last night is evidence enough that this whole thing is fluid, right?
Mhm.
I mean, I made the decision the beginning of the week to talk to the board about going remote. And that was a result of, I'm sure, what you all seen in the news about the rate going up, about the Department of Health's communication with the district and other districts, that they're more focused on family gatherings and what happens at Thanksgiving, right? Family gatherings. You know, I can't control it, but I think the best way that we can control it is just go remote that week. And let's see if there is an uptick rather than bring that uptick into the schools. So as I said, it's fluid. Things may change. I do understand your concern, and I do want to try to address it.
Okay, well, I appreciate that, and I'm sure you and I will talk more about it, because I really want to fight for those K-5 remote kids, definitely.
I'm sure we will.
All right.
Dr. Gianni, I have a question regarding that same issue. So I have a daughter that just started kindergarten, and she has her roster teacher, and we just got introduced to the remote learning teachers today. And from my understanding, next week she'll be doing remote learning only with these teachers, but then the following week, the first week in December, all the children are going to be home, correct, for remote learning for that week?
Yeah.
So which class is she supposed to sign into? The roster teacher?
No, she'd stay with the remote teacher.
So will she ever meet that? Like, will she ever have meets again with the roster teacher? Or
yeah. So yeah, she'd be meeting with the roster teacher on remote Wednesdays, and we are also looking at including the children in the SEL Google Meets in the morning, so there would be a connection.
Oh, okay, yeah, because we didn't get any clarification on that.
Yeah, so that's new, and it's really the suggestion of Mrs. Cologne that causes us to take a look at it, because we do want to keep the kids connected, because honestly, I don't think this is going to go on forever, and I think we are going to all be back in our regular classrooms sometime this school year, particularly when 2 vaccines are coming out rather soon with a pretty high percentage rating. I do believe we will be back before the school year is out.
Dr.
Okay,
Gianni,
thank you.
I have a question based on what you just said about the live streaming. The dual language parents, we had received an email, and it was stated that if our children were absent on any given day, that the class would be live streaming. Is that different for dual language than the other programs? Are they live streaming every day?
Are they dual language remote?
Nope.
Yeah,
the email that we received, this is exactly what it says. If you choose to have your child attend in person 4 days per week and your child is absent, your child will be able to participate from home through live streaming from his classroom with his in-person classroom teacher.
Okay,
yeah, just to let you know, I did hear that would be the case for any student that was out in 4 day, regardless of quarantine. I heard that was across the board. So if a student was out, they would still be able to connect, regardless of dual language, ENL, whatever, they would still be able to connect remotely from home, even if they were out for 1 day or 2 days or whatever.
And
I
we,
do think Ms. Puccini indicated that in like the Facebook group, that you could access your live stream at any time, even if you're just absent.
and that is something we were looking at as well. So that was not inaccurate at that time. However, the concern now is that that live streaming would happen all the time, and the remote teachers, there'd be no reason to go to the remote teachers because the teachers would still be streaming, right? The thought behind the remote teachers was to remove the need to be able to work between the screen and the classroom. Okay, if we were to have to turn on the screen every single day, then that challenge for our teachers would still be there. The idea behind the remote teachers were to take that challenge away and let them focus on the kids in front of them. We'd have to live stream for kids that are quarantined, obviously, because we wouldn't be able to simply move groups of students into a remote classroom. And besides, if we are quarantining at the elementary level, it's more than likely the class would be quarantined. So you would be able to do that live streaming.
And at the K through 2, have the Chromebooks arrived to provide for all the students?
No, so the Chromebooks have been delayed again. We are looking at purchasing refurbished Chromebooks for the books for the individuals that don't have them. However, I'm told that every family does have a connection at home, whether it's their own personal connection or one that has been loaned to them. If that's not true, then, and someone's on that call that's in that instance, please reach out to your principal and myself as well, because we will make sure that you do have that connection. But we are looking at other avenues now to get at least the Chromebooks we need for those students that don't have them right now. And there is a possibility with that. I think you know that our Chromebook order was supposed to come in August. Our order, along with several other district orders, the last message that we got from the vendor was that they were coming in at the end of this month. I don't anticipate that's going to happen, and we are looking at other places that we can purchase just enough that we need, so we make sure everybody has a Chromebook. Another question?
Yes, Dr.
Hi.
Gianni, good night. How are you?
Hi, thank you. Good.
Yeah.
I'm good.
I actually came in late. I'm sorry to ask this question. Probably it were asked already. But knowing that with all the Thanksgiving gatherings that would be happening after Thanksgiving, will the phase-in continue like what had originally sent home to the parents with the notifications, or will that be changing?
So you all got the change today. Did you?
No, I didn't get anything
Okay,
today.
so
Maybe it came in through email.
Yeah, no, it would have. It's on the website, and it came in through email with the change. Basically, phase 4 is continuing because it's before Thanksgiving, and then we are going all remote for the week of November 30th.
Okay, November 30th. Let me take
After Thanksgiving, which pushes the phases out 1 week.
Okay, awesome.
And we'll obviously be looking at what infection rates look like and possibly making another decision. I don't know, but we do have another board meeting on December 2nd.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Dr. Gianni, is there any consideration with weather? Like we just had like a little mini tornado. If someone has a power outage in their home for say a week or something, can that student be able to go to the school if it's not like their time to go?
Well, that's a nice question. I mean, no one's thought about that one.
I think out of the box all the time,
Yeah,
and sometimes it gets me in trouble, but I was looking at the tornado going, wow, I can see PSCG being backed up and these kids with no anything for 2 weeks.
So this is a remote child you're talking about, total remote?
Anybody, who
Because,
knows?
well, because we're phasing in, right?
Yeah.
So everyone should be in 4 days a week at one point or another. Listen, I think that's one of those things we're going to have to, think out of the box when it happens. But honestly, have not thought about it. And if anyone's out of power for any extended time, we are going to need to make an adjustment.
I mean, I like to see them be able to get into school, even if it's one child.
Yeah. Okay.
Dr. Gianni,
Yes.
I just would like to ask you if you could give some more information on the contact tracing and how it's working in our school, who's doing it.
Yeah. Okay. So I think there's a little confusion in that. So the schools don't do contact tracing. What the schools do is determine who is in close contact. Now, in the beginning of the school year, the DOH, Department of Health, was pretty involved, and I'm looking for a better word, but pretty involved in what we were doing in the school. In fact, we have about 4 or 5 pages of documents that we fill out and send to the DOH when a COVID positive student or staff member is in the district. The types of questions that are asked are who is within the 6 feet, when masks are worn, what size the classroom is, where the windows open. Okay, we did that for the whole beginning of the school year, and just maybe 2 weeks ago, we got a letter from the DOH saying what you're doing in the schools is great. Keep it up. We are now going to start focusing on community gatherings because we recognize schools are not the issue when it comes to exposure or transmitting the disease, because we're doing a good job. So the DOH now is saying, just let us know who is within close contact of the COVID positive person. When we do that obviously because we keep careful schedule of our students and staff in the buildings. We know where they are all the time. We know where they've been. We're doing check-ins, checks out of bathrooms, et cetera, et cetera. So we gather that information, determine who is in close contact with that individual, and we submit that to the DOH. The DOH now will contact that family and further question them, contact tracing, to determine if they were in close contact with anyone else and continue that contact tracing investigation. We tell those folks that you are in close contact with a COVID positive individual, you are to stay home for school for 2 weeks, and you will be.
So I appreciate that answer, and I did see that memo from the DOH, which obviously they obviously have to use their resources to other areas, and the schools are doing better than the numbers in our counties for right now. But if you could please drill down a little bit and say exactly who, is it the nurses that are determining it? Is it the principals?
The principals are doing it. I'm asking the work from the principals, and I'm sure the principals have individuals helping them with that in the schools. Who it is, I do not know. I would suggest that the secondary is the assistant principals, but some of our buildings don't have assistant principals. So it's probably a combination of teachers and maybe even the nurse. But I doubt it would be the nurse, because the nurse is caring for ill students.
Are they being trained to do this situation?
There's no training necessary to follow a schedule to find out who's in close contact. Remember, they're not contact tracing. All we are doing is determining who was in close contact. And we can do that very simply by looking at schedules and rosters and knowing where students have been.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Hi, Dr. Gianni. I have a question.
Sure.
It was brought to my attention today that the teachers that will be doing the remote learning are from the AIS program. So does that mean that the students that need extra help with math and reading, they won't be getting that anymore?
So we are using those teachers right now because clearly it's going to be difficult to just find and replace teachers. The plan is to recruit and then transition new teachers into the program. We chose the AIS teachers because they have been trained and are familiar with the TC reading program as well as the math program. So we felt they would be able to hit the ground running with regard to delivering those programs until such time we're able to replace them.
Now, what about with like, social studies and science?
Yeah, so social studies would be done by the LA person and science would be done by the math person. Very similar to the 6th grade program.
So do you know how long that they would be doing this?
No, that's all going to depend upon how our efforts in recruiting. It also is going to have to do with some cooperation with the union because we do need to negotiate the item. I don't anticipate we'll have an issue with the union with it, but there are some things that need to be in place before the transition happens.
Okay, so just so now when you hire new teachers, that would they become their new quote roster teacher, or so they would be introduced to a?
Yeah, it's too soon to tell. To be honest with you, I think for now I can say to you they would transition in, and the AIS folks would transition out, and we would maintain the program as it is, where there is a connection with the roster teacher. Honestly, it's early for me to be able to say that because I don't know where we will be at that time in the phase-in.
Okay, so don't you kind of think that's a lot for a K through 5, or especially, I mean, my child's in 1st grade. Don't you think it's kind of a lot of teachers for him to deal with in 1 year?
Yeah, listen, I'm not saying it's ideal. It's not ideal. However, the challenge that the teachers have had trying to balance remote learners and kids in front of them is equally a lot. So we were trying to make sure we can get the kids the best education they can by having somebody that could focus on them alone rather than shifting back and forth.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Dr. John, thank you. So I'm just going to piggyback that topic real quick because that's what I have been screaming for days now. I explained it in the email that was read that, my little guy had 4 teachers in 2nd grade and it wasn't the main teacher's fault. She was on maternity leave. That's wonderful. But we went through 3 permanent subs and that class was really messed up from that. And they happened to have the support of the building at that time. Now these kids at home, again, I'm going to say it again, and I really would, I want to, I don't know because I don't know if the teachers, I don't know if the teachers thought, that they would almost completely lose their kids. And I don't know how they feel. So I'm not going to touch on that. I'm just going to mention that. But I think that, if we take away the live teaching and leave these kids with their schedule, these K through 5, we're talking 5-year-olds to 10-year-olds, keeping them with their schedule. Any parent who's kept their kids home on remote accepted the responsibility that they would be helping their babies. So it can't, the parents and the classroom roster teachers work together to lighten the load a little bit so that these kids could at least stay with the schedule they've been doing for 3 months. That's all. I keep coming back to the emotional, and I get taking, getting off of taking some of the slack off the teachers because the teachers really are doing an amazing job. And I'm going to keep saying that. I don't think a lot of teachers would be willingly ready to just give up their kids.
So Ms. Colon, let me tease that out a little bit because maybe I misunderstood what you said when you said go back to September. Are you suggesting stay with your roster teacher? But
yes, I'm suggesting.
Let me finish. But not the live streaming, just the
Yes.
connection in the morning like we used to do?
No, I'm suggesting the original plan that we first started with the daily SEL meets.
Yeah.
The occasional, because I don't know on what level each teacher was doing. So the occasional, say, video lesson for specifically, in my opinion, math would be the main one that is a needed one. And then keep it the way it was and not have to switch, these schedules, because I heard, I didn't get a switch yet, but I heard from other parents that their entire schedule that they've been doing for 3 months is different now because we're dealing with a whole different set of teachers.
Yeah.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
that's
true. It's
crazy for K through, that's crazy when these parents have been doing this for 3 months and we're going into the holiday season and we got these babies at home. It's and the secondary aren't being affected, which is, I'm happy for them that they don't have to switch teachers and stuff like that. But I think when you have a bond established at a young age, the emotional toll of switching teachers. So we're going to AIS teachers and then going to transition again out to another teacher is way too much for little guys to handle, and to have on top of it all, a pandemic where they're now home when they really should be in school and they want to be with their friends, but because of health issues or whatever the reason the parents are keeping them home, now they have no choice but to start switching, and it's too much for these babies. And I think that's the point that I've been trying to make for days.
Can
I say something?
I'm not going to disagree with you, and you can, but let me just finish with Ms. Cologne. So like it is the Google Meets, the SEL Google Meets, and the posted work and videos.
Yes.
Okay.
The one that we started with.
I think I understand.
Before the one we started with.
I agree with Sarah. My son's in 5th grade, and he was excelling very well remotely. And just recently, with a change of teachers and his teacher, and now he's going to go into full time, going in the transition, because he doesn't want to change teachers. He said that he had a hard enough time trying to learn his teacher and get to know her. Now to keep doing it all these different times, he said he's getting overwhelmed. And he's like a straight A student, no problems. But lately, with all the, now everything is live, everything is time, and him being at home with his grandfather is also watching his baby cousin, it's very hard for my son to focus. Like, he was able to get everything done, no issues. Now it's a little bit harder. And the only time I ever talk to his teacher just to make sure everything is good, the teacher is very happy because she didn't want to lose him. So how are the teachers feeling about losing their remote kids? Because when she found out that Lanham was going to go to school full time, she was so happy because she's like, I don't want to lose this child. So how are they really feeling?
Okay. That's a good question. I think you'd probably find mixed responses on that. Another question?
Yes, Dr. Gianni?
Yes.
I had a question about contact tracing.
Mm-hmm.
So if a child is found that he was in close contact within, the 6 feet, now when he gets quarantined, the teacher gets quarantined, and then would like his siblings get quarantined, and then therefore the adults in the home? I'm not sure how that it's changed.
No, I don't think so. So it would depend upon if there was a COVID positive person in the home, right? So the reason for the quarantine is precautionary, right? Just because you're quarantined doesn't mean that you are infectious or infected. The quarantine is to protect you and others from it in the event you were infected. So I was wondering, just because with the Department of Health, which I work with too, we have to say that we have to attest that we haven't been in contact with anyone with COVID-19. Right.
So would it be just that personal child? Like, since my child was in contact with them, would it then affect my job, which would then affect other families in my community, or do you think that it just stops at the child?
My opinion is that if your child gets sent home, being a close contact with a COVID positive, and your child doesn't have symptoms or COVID positive, you are not in contact with someone that is COVID positive, unless at some time your child did become COVID positive.
So siblings of a COVID child that was sent home for quarantine, the siblings wouldn't have to quarantine.
No, they wouldn't, but they need to stay away from the quarantined individual. Now that would be
From the quarantine sibling?
For the so if you have a son and a daughter, and the son has to quarantine at home, quarantine at home means they need to be alone, right? They're not walking around the house getting in close contact with others, because God forbid they did become COVID positive, then you'd have an issue in your home. So different though, if you do have a COVID positive person in your home, the whole household needs to quarantine.
Okay. And now what about the teachers? Would the teachers have to stay in quarantine and what are we going to do when the teachers get quarantined?
The same thing is true with students or adults. So
the teachers, and do we have any backup plan for those teachers?
So yeah, we have a couple of backup plans, depending upon the situation. Right now, we are experimenting with how a teacher can teach from home who is under quarantine. We're looking at all options. One of the options may very well be if a teacher is home but ill and can't teach, then we are going to have to provide a substitute for that teacher.
Okay.
But listen, there are so many case scenarios. It's hard to work them all out.
I'm sorry, but Dr. Gianni, so if a child in the 4th grade is quarantined and they have a sibling that goes to the high school, will the sibling in the high school be notified to quarantine also?
Well, the child in the 4th grade that is quarantined, are they COVID positive?
I don't know. If you're asking that we have to quarantine a child, are you also asking us to get a test?
No. So again, we have to look at the difference between a COVID positive case and someone quarantined because they were in close contact with a COVID positive case. So because you were in close contact doesn't mean that you are infected or infectious. The purpose of the quarantine is in the event you do or you are infected or are infectious.
But you're not requiring a test showing negative to return back to school after quarantine?
You have to stay home for 14 days when you're on quarantine.
But we don't need to show a negative test to have them go back after 14 days.
You know what? I would want to go back to our plan to see that. I don't believe you have to have a test in 14 days. If you go home ill, you do need a test to come back.
But if that child in the 4th grade is asked to quarantine and they have a sibling in another school, the sibling in the other school does not have to quarantine.
No, because that sibling hasn't been in close contact with a COVID positive case.
Okay, I appreciate that answer. Thank you.
And I would also suggest that high school kid stay away from the 4th grade sibling.
Right, I understand that, but you're asking, but then you're going with the honor system. That's what I'm trying to get here is we're going with an honor system.
That's the family. The family needs to do that.
With an honor system.
Well, if that's how you'd like to describe it, but that's
well, it is. You're hoping that they're going to be doing the right thing by testing all their children and finding out if they're positive or not, but you're not requiring anyone to be tested, just to be quarantined for 14 days. And if they have a sibling in another school, that sibling is still continued to go to that school if they want to.
Correct. If the sibling has not been in contact with a COVID positive case, they're not required to be quarantined.
Even though that their sibling may be the positive case.
No. How could they may be the positive? You're either positive or not.
If the 4th grader is asked to be quarantined, they could be positive. If a parent doesn't test the child, and we don't know if they have COVID-19, and they have a sibling that's going to the high school, and they don't test that person, and you're not telling the high schooler to be quarantined because they have a family member that is being quarantined, and no one gets a test, and you're not requiring to have a test shown to the school that they are negative to go back after 14 days. It's all an honor system.
Mrs. Arman, if that's how you'd like to describe it, that's fine.
That's not how I'm describing it. That's what it
Okay,
is.
okay, very well. Another question?
Yes, Dr. Gianni. Number one, I have a comment and then I have a question. My comment is my daughter is a remote learner and I have been able to sit in the classroom and, you know, make sure she's doing what she needs to do. But there are a lot of students that don't have that support at home. So with these multiple classrooms, you know, and all the specials and things like that, it is extremely chaotic for the K-3 kids to be able to do this and know where they're going, when they're going without any guidance. So I just wanted to make you aware of that. But my other question is initially with the schoolwork, we were able to upload it to the classroom, you know, all of the assignments, photographing them and uploading them. And then I was told no, that's not the case. They're not checking the pages. So now I'm unnecessarily having to go to the school each week to drop off paperwork. I have myself been in contact with people who have had COVID, and I've gotten blood work with people who've had COVID, and to have to make people go into the school to drop off paperwork just seems extremely unnecessary.
What school is that, ma'am? You shouldn't be dropping off paperwork at school. You should be able to upload.
No, Brookhaven Elementary.
Okay, thank you. Another question?
Dr. Gianni?
Yes.
I have a question for the middle school and high school. Now that you're bringing more kids back and under the 6 feet in the classrooms, are they going to be changing like hall passing?
I'm sorry.
More kids in the hallways when you're bringing all the groups back.
We have a bad connection. Can you say that
Oh,
again?
I lost my connection.
We got.
When now that you're bringing, this is for like the middle school and high school.
Yes.
Now that you're bringing all the kids back at some point, are they going to adjust the bell schedule for the students so there's less kids in the hallway with now that all kids are returning?
Yeah, we're going to need to look at that as kids come back. Our students have been very good in terms of moving in the hallways. And remember, we have not, nor do we intend to assign lockers. Lockers are generally good places for kids to stop and congregate. So the kids have been moving along very well, but that is something that we are going to need to look at as we increase the density in the buildings, which is exactly why we're bringing kids back in phases, so we can see how that goes. And if we do need to make adjustments, we will do that.
And when you bring the kids back, because I know they're eating at desks in the cafeteria, with all the kids coming back, are they going to be changing the lunchrooms, or is there still enough room in the lunchroom to keep it as is?
Yeah, at first there will be enough room, but as we increase density, I don't know which phase it is, that we will need to either move inside that 6-foot mark, or we will need to expand into other areas.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
One more thing, Dr. Gianni. With the busing.
Busing?
Yeah.
Busing.
That's what I was going to say. Busing.
Oh, really? I guess it's just the numbers. I was curious to see how many kids are going to be on the bus now.
And how you'd address something like Riverhead, where they closed down the whole school because of busing.
So we anticipate in looking at the rosters and on our buses that we should be able to have one student on a bus under the model, between the kids that are actually utilizing the bus and the kids that are not utilizing the bus and that remote kids. And obviously, if we can't accommodate that, we're going to look at adding buses for that. But we anticipate being able to have one student on a bus. One student on a seat.
Yes, one student in a seat, right?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
But still, if one person on the bus has COVID, the whole bus would be, or no?
No, again, then you'd have to determine the close contact, right? Students will be wearing masks, but the bus is much larger than 6 feet long. I would guess that the the children that are within 6 feet of the COVID positive person would be quarantined.
Well, as they pass by, but I mean, I guess that's goes by the hours of them being in contact, correct?
Yeah, that's tough because it's 10 minutes, right? So I think that's pretty much possible on a bus.
Okay.
You're welcome.
Dr. Gianni, just a comment on two of the other ladies that shared before. Pertaining to the schedule, I have reached out to the school couple times with the mix-up of schedules that comes in. So really, we don't know what schedule to really follow other than the classroom teacher. So in my child's case, he has art, he has music, he has PE and reading and library and a couple different things. But some of these are outside of his main schedule teachers. Now, on that case, we have issues with some of the online work that needs to be done. I have reached out to the teachers on many attempts to let them know that my child is not able to do the work because of issues with the uploading of that. At this point, it still has not been fixed. And up to yesterday, I emailed the teacher again, letting her know at this point, since school started in September to now, my son cannot do the work at all, and it still has not been, fixable. Now, with the mix-up of the schedules and not having like days of what we do, like for instance, on a particular day you have physical ed, or on a particular day you would have art. Now, if they have a schedule that is made up just like how his classroom teacher has one, it's easier to follow what they have. But in a case like how everything is all mixed up, it's difficult to follow what they have planned out.
And your child's a remote learner?
No, he goes to school on Mondays and Tuesdays.
Okay, would you shoot me an email with your child's name?
I will do that.
Okay,
And also I have.
I'll have my assistant get back to you tomorrow, and we'll figure it out.
There is no communication when there's like a new class to sign up for, like all of a sudden we got a message from the teacher this week, or the students were getting messages from the teacher this week saying nobody has signed up for PE.
Yes.
Well, nobody told us we had to sign up for it.
That's right. And that's why I'm saying, like, I mean, I could be playing out. I could tell you the teachers, and they are so good. And I commend them for what they do. Miss Marcello and her team, they do a great job with communication. But some of the other teachers, and sorry that I have to call name, it is terrible that my child is not getting any attendance record or submitting work, and there's no communication from them at all.
Okay, well that shouldn't happen.
Yes, so please look into that. I would really appreciate it to have that done, because at the end of the school year, then my child is going to have one of the class subject that he is getting no attendance or no classwork for. So they just need to work on having a better schedule, like how Miss Marcello and the other teacher has it done. They do a great job, I would say. Their communication is really, really good. So, I am grateful for what they do. I know it's hard for the teachers as well as the parents, but if we have better schedules up, I think we can do a better job at home and even in the school.
Yeah, there's no reason why you shouldn't have a schedule up. All right, if you can just send me your contact with your child's name and just brief what we talked about. We'll look at that tomorrow for you. And anyone else that are having communication issues on the call as well. If you're having those communication issues as well, shoot me an email with your child's name and just a brief message as to what the issue is, and we'll get it resolved for you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, folks, I think I'm going to...
Excuse me, Dr. Gianni, one more question. Now, again, I just want to make sure, if a child is going back 4 days a week, but he's quarantined or he's sick, can he go back into, what does he do? What does the child do to get into class? You know, that if he's
If the child is
quarantined. or
going
he's
back,
sick-
if the child is back 4 days a week of instruction and is out sick for intermittent sicknesses, or the parents wish to just keep them home, the child will just log in and get the work that's posted in Google Classroom. If the child is quarantined home as a result of COVID, the teacher will live stream as they are doing right now.
So 4 days a week, a child would be able, like he has a sniffle, he doesn't want to get sent down to the nurse and have a COVID test. He can just log into his regular classroom, regular teacher.
Work will be available in the classroom posted as normal.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, folks, I am going to sign off. I thank you all for joining me this evening. If there were any questions that might not have gotten to, please feel free to email them to me. I do plan on doing a Facebook Live where I will record my answers to your questions, so everyone will have the same information in case I missed anything. Have a great evening, everyone. Again, thank you all for joining me.
Thank you, Dr. Gianni.
Bye-bye now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.